Go for it, go for it. I'm just saying I'm not finished yet. Search for it, swing for it. Discover the me that lives in yes. Stand for it, stretch for it. It's my time, imagine my best. Run for it, reach for it. Uncover the me that lives in yes. I know, yes I know. There'll be miracles wherever I go. It's not work, it's play. I can make magic today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Senior Nation. I'm your host, Phyllis, Ayman, and you are listening to Source TV Radio Network, WTSN, Washington, D.C. We are indeed a senior nation with 100 plus million adults over the age of 50. And we are here to bring you up-to-date information from aging healthfully and gracefully, healthy longevity, and becoming what I call a well-ager, to dignity, respect, quality of life, and quality of care for our parents, grandparents, and loved ones. We at Senior Nation will be your trusted voice for informed choices, meaningful conversations, and a vibrant life at every age. Though the Source TV Radio Network is known for its dedication to bringing the highest level of jazz content to the watching and listening audience, the owners of the network are also dedicated to bringing this important content to this fast-growing demographic. I'm deeply grateful for this opportunity. So let's begin with today's show. My guest today is Susie Singer Carter, an award-winning writer, playwright, director, producer, and actress at Go Girl Media. She started her TV film career in 2006, writing, producing, and directing 2 children's series for CBS Saturday morning, Cake and Dance Revolutions. She moved into features, writing BRATZ for Lionsgate and co-producing Soul Surfer for SONY. Her short film, My Mom and the Girl, starring Valer in her final performance, won numerous awards, including Best Direction, Best Short Film, and Best Ensemble Cast, and was officially selected at the Emerging Filmmaker Showcase at Cannes in 2017, winning a spot in the PBS Fine Cuts series, and was Oscars qualified in 2018. During the pandemic, Susie launched 2 successful podcasts. Her talk show, Love Conquers Alz, received Best Podcast 2020 by New Media Film Festival and is now in its 3rd season. Susie wrote and directed the award-winning feature documentary, No Country for Old People, inspired by her mother's last 6 months of life in a long-term care facility in 2022. Susie certainly knows the power of storytelling and has attracted an impressive list of the most talented and staunch advocates to contribute to the film. She's also partnered with the National Consumer Voice for Quality Long-Term Care, who are fiscally sponsoring the film by providing a 501c3 status. So welcome, Susie, to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so terrific. You know, we've spoken a few times over the years. I think the last time we spoke, Susie, it was I think at the tail end of the pandemic, but you were in the process of doing your film, and it was doing the SAG strike, and you were having quite a bit of time trying to finish the film. So can you tell us a little bit about it, and, you know, the process that you went through for making this film, and how you got to, you know, finally finishing it at this wonderful level?
Right. So actually 2022 was when my mom passed away after 6 months of being, you know, coming out of COVID, like you said. It was still the tail end of COVID, and went through such a horrific journey in her last 6 months of life, which I was there with her. And it opened my eyes to this industry called long-term care. And I had no idea, as no one does unless you're plummeted into it. And, why would you? Nobody wants to know about nursing homes and rehabilitation centers and on and on. I mean, it's not sexy. It's not fun. But when you love somebody that has to be a resident in one of these facilities, you soon learn that there's something not going, this is not the way it's supposed to be. And boy, it was so hard and such an eye-opening experience for me. I saw so many things that I couldn't unsee. And as a filmmaker, when my mom passed away, I thought, how can I witness all of this and not share it with other people so that this doesn't happen to them as well? I didn't know if we could fix it. I didn't know what could be done about it. All I knew was that I needed to be loud about it and to tell people this is what's actually going on, because my mom was at a 5-star facility in Los Angeles and she was being severely neglected, severely abused, and she was suffering. And I would say to them, my mom is suffering. And they'd say, no, this is normal. This is normal. She has Alzheimer's. She has holes in her brain. Don't worry about it. She doesn't even know what's going on. And I said, well, if that's true, why are we keeping her alive?
Right. Good point.
Right? If that's true.
Yeah, I not to interrupt you, but I always remember the Maya Angelou quote. People may not remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel. And, that's so true. And people who don't understand that and think because a person with Alzheimer's maybe can't speak or doesn't understand what's being said, that they don't feel what's happening to them, is missing the boat. And, I'm a dementia care specialist, and through the years, many facilities, I've said, let me educate the staff, let me do training. Not interested. And I just don't understand it, because you're supposed to be caring for these people. And some places have what they call, and I'm not talking about assisted living facilities that have memory care units. I'm talking about these skilled nursing and long-term care facilities that have the same thing, and they call it a locked unit. And they think because it's locked, that's it. They don't have to do anything else. And it's just a horror show, as you say.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the closest thing to warehousing human beings as we can get, and that is just inhumane, and yet it's happening, and through my partner, who is now became my producing partner, along with my other team. Part of my other team was a gentleman called Rick Moncastle, who's a former federal prosecutor, and your audience might have seen him portrayed by Peter Sarsgaard, the actor Peter Sarsgaard, in the miniseries Dope Sick on Hulu a couple of years ago. And it really followed his journey of prosecuting the pharmaceutical company that produced OxyContin, which is Purdue Pharma, and a very notorious Sackler family. And Michael Keaton was in it, and Rick was the lead prosecutor on that. I was watching it because I was fascinated, and this man was just incredible. But by the 9th episode, the final episode, his partner came in to say, after it was all over, well, I think we've got our next case, another pharmaceutical, don't kill me, basically. But it's Abbott Labs, and they're off marketing some drug called Depakote.
Right.
Nursing homes, right? So that was my mom. My mom was a victim of Depakote. And I said, I got to have this guy on my podcast. I have a podcast called Love Conquers Alz. So I was like, I need to have him on. Tell us about, how does this happen? Why does it happen?
So I just want to say, before you go on with that, that viewers or listeners, that when I, because as speech and language pathologist, and I always repeat this, I've worked over 50,000 hours in long-term care. And so we approach this from different points of view. I'm writing books and, you know, doing this and trying to get the word out in different ways. You're a filmmaker, and I am working on a film project, but that's separate. But what I have, it's not just that because a person has that diagnosis necessarily that they give them that drug. What they do is give them a diagnosis of psychosis 1 episode, depression 1 episode without recurrent features. I mean, I could tell you I've seen this in probably 90 or 95% of the charts that I have reviewed in all the facilities that I'm in. So that diagnosis allows them to prescribe a drug that is appropriate, compatible with that diagnosis. So when I coach families, I even told this to my daughter, because my ex-husband is in a memory care unit. I even suggested to her that she asked to review the chart so she could see what diagnosis he's been given, because in all likelihood, he has one of those diagnoses. And when something happens, they use that as an excuse to prescribe that drug.
Right. No, absolutely. Because, and why does that happen? You know, Rick Modcastle was the first person to tell me that what I was experiencing with my mother was not a one-off situation. I was not an outlier. This was a systemic national crisis that's been going on for 50 years. And it turned out he had been federally prosecuting nursing homes and long-term care facilities for over 20 years. And even though he might win these individual cases, nothing changed because everything stays status quo. And why does it stay status quo? Because they have a very strong lobby that lobbies for them to keep everything status quo. They sit in seats in our legislation. That's why bills don't get passed. There's a lot of performative movement that goes on, but change has not really happened, which is why, and why does that happen? Because it's a business model.
Right.
That investors, equity,
real estate investment trusts are a lot behind it.
And they are making hand over fist money because no one's looking, and CMS, which is the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid, who pay these bills, because people that are in long-term care generally do not pay for it out of their own pocket. At that point in life, you are using Medicare and Medicaid. In California, it's Medi-Cal, and as long as all the forms are filled out, they write the checks.
So interestingly enough, in New York, we have Letitia James, the Attorney General. Yep. And in my book that's going to this 4th book that will be coming out soon, she has prosecuted several of these companies in the state of New York, got them to pay back millions of dollars for abuse, for fraud, for neglect, a variety of things. But here's the thing. One of them in particular, I know, I've never met him personally, but I have met him kind of tangentially through other people briefly. I mean, he's a billionaire, multi-billionaire. So the suit was for 80 some odd million dollars, 85, I think. He paid 43. So that's a drop in the bucket. They continue with business as usual. And one of my pet peeves is when people say, the Medicaid rate there are slim margins. I've heard that from the beginning when I wrote my first book and I started really investigating this. That's what I heard. Well, there are small margins. They can't really survive. And my contention is that you wouldn't be buying more of something if you're not making money at the first thing. Bingo. So how is it that these people have millions of dollars in their personal coffers? They, all of their family, all of it is intertwined with their families. I call it a cartel, to be perfectly honest.
It is.
Their family members and, are related. They own different companies and they have millions and millions of dollars. So how is that all these fraud cases come about? So they're not providing the care. They're taking the money for themselves and doing the least so they could make the most. So wait, we also have somebody who just commented that said Depakote was cross-marketed for Alzheimer's and schizophrenia and was never approved for either one. My dad was put on Depakote when he was diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's. I mean, I have to tell you, when I read these things, because I mean, it was your mother, but even working in these buildings and seeing this, I get choked up. Just thinking about
it. Ruined my mother's life for the last 8 years of her life, because right after I put her into the facility when she needed to go, before that, she was very, very active and walking with us. Like, you know, we walk a couple miles a day, and she was like, her doctor said she was in the best shape she'd ever been in. She was not incontinent, but suddenly within a couple of weeks, I thought, oh, her Alzheimer's is progressing. I had no idea until her regular GP, who had seen her, said, your mom is on a black label drug. By the way, Depakote is a black label drug for elders, and especially people with dementia and Alzheimer's. So he said, can we take her off of it? I said, can we take her off of it? Of course.
Right.
I mean, I didn't even know she was on it. So let's put that out there right now, you know.
You know, that's interesting, because they are supposed to inform families when they put somebody, especially it's not part of their regimen, when they add a drug to a person's regimen, they are supposed to inform them. They're supposed to tell them why. You know, that's a whole other story. But it's just, I mean, it's just a travesty. And, you know, when we talk about warehousing, which is funny because in my first book, I used that word warehousing because that's essentially what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And to me, it all boils down to the same thing, that we don't have dignity and respect and value older people. It doesn't matter at what point in the health span they are at, that it's a human rights issue. And that, what does it say about us as a society if those who have lived their long life and contributed, we can't care for them in a way that affords them dignity, respect, and a quality of life? I mean, I just think it's despicable.
We've lost our sense of community. We are individualistic society. We are ageists. We are ableists, and we don't value people who are that, who have, you know, who have a disability, who have a cognitive disability, and who are over a certain age. The respect, you know, people seem to age out of everything. They age out of life before they're 32. So, and you know, we don't realize how profound that perspective is until you see that it's permeated all of our medical, you know, the healthcare industrial complex, as one of my experts calls it, you know. And it is really that. It is an industrial complex, and it is, people are making so much money off of it because they can, because we don't have that perspective as a society to respect our elders, to value them.
Yeah, to value the life and what they've contributed. You know, many years ago, I was covering for for a stint because they didn't have anybody, and it was a distance from my house. And I knew the COO of the company, and so I was going up there. Anyway, there's a geriatrician. I don't know if you and I have ever discussed him, Bill Thomas. And I will have him on at some point. He wrote the foreword to my last book. He's a brilliant guy. He created what they call the Eden Alternative.
Oh, I know who he is. Yes, because one of our geriatricians who's in our documentary, Al Power.
Oh, Al Power! I know Al Power. Yeah. Al Power! Oh my goodness!
And he actually mentions him in our documentary.
Right. So Al Power. Oh my gosh, Al Power. He's a musician.
I know.
He actually sent me 2 of his CDs many years ago. And he also wrote a testimonial to my last book. He's a really very, very nice man, Al Power. And Bill Thomas. So we've become friends. And several years ago, when I was up in this building, and I called him one day and I said, Bill, I just can't believe it. I even know the COO of this company. I met him many years ago. He's really a decent guy. I don't get it. And he said to me, it's kind of designed in a way that it can change the structure of it. And, so when you say, can it change or will it change? I don't know. Maybe it can, maybe it can. As long as it's a profit. it's a for-profit industry. I think that's
It's wealth care. It's wealth care.
Right. It is wealth care. Absolutely. So somebody just wrote, what are the markers for a diagnosis for Alzheimer's? And what is the covariance? My sister was just diagnosed and she's 45. It just doesn't feel right. Now, this is interesting because when you were talking about Alzheimer's and older people, there is such a thing as early onset. When a person is in their 40s, it's not so unusual. And so in order to really determine if a person has Alzheimer's, which is a disease, as opposed to dementia, which is a set of symptoms, which is associated with many other, you could have dementia when you have Parkinson's, and there are different kinds of frontal temporal and different kinds of dementia, really requires a neurologist to make that determination. It would be my response. But, before we go further, I know we have a trailer for the documentary, No Country for Old People, and I'd love to show it so listeners and so viewers can really get a chance to see what you've really done. So we're going to take a minute and view the trailer, if that's okay with you.
I'd love it. Thank you.
Awesome.
As I watched my mother fade away within the confines of a nursing home, I discovered that behind the facade of care lies a dark reality of neglect and abuse. This is the story of our struggle and countless others trapped in the grip of the nursing home crisis.
The founder of Cleveland-based Life Care Centers of America is now one of the richest people in America.
Hospice is big business.
That is a big business.
The way they move their money is just like a criminal enterprise.
They're trying to make her die faster than she wants to.
You're tortured.
So sorry.
And you're tortured to death.
You are literally killing people to make more money.
That's completely inappropriate, and there's terms for that.
What are those terms?
Oh, that's murder.
When cash is the primary reason for doing something.
She's in pain because they're not taking care of her.
Sorry. I know.
Anywhere in the healthcare system.
My mother's death was a brutal death at the nursing home.
People suffer.
They're throwaway people. That's all they are, is throwaway people.
We have to look in the mirror and ask ourselves as a country, what are we going to do for our older adults, for our most vulnerable, for our loved ones? And I think that's why you're doing this documentary.
To me, it's the shame of the nation.
That was so unbelievably powerful. And I have to tell you, Mike Wasserman, who's the geriatrician, he and I are good friends. Mm-hmm. I had him on a podcast I had years ago. He also wrote a beautiful testimonial to my last book. He's an awesome guy. And he was past president of the California Long-Term Care Commission, I think it is. And interesting about Mike Wasserman, not to get away from your film, but how I forgot, I think I met him like through Twitter. Somebody introduced me to him. Anyway, I had heard about this company in California that had done some wonderful things, had some wonderful initiatives for a short period of time. So I just had heard about it. And I think I was connected to the fellow who arranged some of these programs. They were wonderful, wonderful programs that were very innovative and really provided people with a purpose and whatever. Anyway, when I met Mike Wasserman, like a year or two later, very interesting, he said, "Oh, I was CEO of that company. And when I saw what was going on, I left." And then that guy who had those programs, he also left. He's a very ethical guy and cares deeply about caring for people in a dignified and respectful way. So it was nice to kind of see him in that trailer.
Oh yeah, he's one of our stars in the docuseries. Yeah.
He's a great guy. He really is a great guy. Very caring guy.
Yeah, and he knows it. He's been on all sides of it as a doctor, as an administrator, and then as an advocate and a spokesperson. So he understands it,
inside and out. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we are very grateful to him. We're grateful to Charlene Harrington, who has been one of our.
You're naming all my favorite people. So Charlene Harrington, she wrote the foreword to my second book, Overdue: Quality Care for Elder Citizens, and she wrote a testimonial for this one, and I will have her on Senior Nation, as well as Mike Wasserman. So you're like naming my favorite people.
Well, they're my favorite people now too. I said we have some of the most renowned voices, and very outspoken, and people who are just ready to see change. They just don't want it to continue on like this as it's been for 50 years. I mean, the National Consumer Voice was launched in 1974 by Ralph Nader.
Correct.
And so that's 1974, folks. That's 51 years ago, and we're still fighting the same fight.
So interestingly enough, when I was writing my first book, I came up with this idea one day because an administrator said, "Gee, you've done a great job, but now I could get two for the price of you." And I was devastated. They were actually a profit company, and they had heard of me, and they called me, and they bought the building one day, and I went the next, because they had heard I knew how to develop programs and whatever. Anyway, and when he said that to me, I was devastated. And then I heard shortly after that the owner of that building, young fellow from Long Island, was buying a facility in Nashville, Tennessee. I said, "Now, what is this guy doing in Nashville, Tennessee? This is a national issue, I guess." Because when you work in a specific arena, it kind of becomes like a cocoon. Anyway, I started looking into it, and I came across Charlene Harrington's articles, because she's a professor emeritus at UCSF. She's a nurse, and she's been studying understaffing for, I don't know, 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to her. I remember where I was sitting when she got on the phone with me, and I told her I wanted to write a book about this and start to expose this. She was the first person who encouraged me. And when I went to my first National Consumer Voice for Quality Long-Term Care annual meeting, I met her. And so we email, and she's become a friend, and she's an awesome, awesome woman.
She's fantastic. She is the godmother. And I just spoke to her yesterday on the Zoom. And I mean, when we filmed her up in San Francisco, she walked in the room, and she emanates, and she's an angelic, just
absolutely
soul. Like, she walks in, and it's like, whoa. And she's just gorgeous. And she just said, she came up to me and just took my hand, and she said, "Your mom would be so proud of you." And the first time I cried in the very long time. And I was like, she just is authentic and really cares, and has done and continues to do work even in her golden years. And I told her she's just my muse and my North Star, because, I'm not going to quit on this. I am a filmmaker. I like to do fun things too, but this is so important.
Absolutely.
And it's why it's not just a film, it's actually going to be a 3-part miniseries, docuseries. And, but we're just now launching a movement. We have to have a grassroots movement. It's really us that are going to do it, right?
That was my next question, to talk about your movement. I love it.
Yeah, the movement is called ROAR, and we're roaring for people over profit in long-term care. ROAR stands for respect and oversight and advocacy and reform. And we really need to use our voices. We need to become warriors as a public, because, as I said about the lobby, The lobby is, traditional advocacy hasn't worked because of the lobby. There is, a epidemic, and it has been, of understaffing. That's how they make their money. They understaff because that's the largest nut. And so they will never staff up the way where these facilities need to be staffed, because that's going to cut into their profit.
So interesting that you say that, because Charlene Harrington has been at this about 30 years, maybe more. Mm-hmm. And so recently there was an initiative to require staff to have staffing mandates. And of course, it was challenged, and I believe it was struck down. And I had met actually the former director of the lobbying group that lobbied for the long-term care industry. His name was Mark Parkinson.
He's
also. I had met him. Actually, I had interviewed him once, and he has stepped down since that time. But he was one of the top lobbyists in the country, top 100 lobbyists. He was a former governor of Kansas and owns nursing homes. I mean, that's how he rose.
Go figure.
Shocker, as I say.
Shocker. He's also in my documentary, and we are not too kind about it. We're very, transparent, because he, as you said, he was the leader of this, very, very despicable organization. Other countries don't have lobbies. For some reason we do, but that's a whole nother conversation, right? That's a whole nother conversation. But the truth is that if we don't take this situation into our own hands, as like the power that we have, the only power that we have, our currency is ourselves and our voices as constituents. And if that is how we've seen it with other movements, the Me Too movement, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, DARE. It takes the people, because if you follow the money and it goes down to our political leaders, it's not going to change without the public demanding.
Correct. So interestingly enough, I had read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Revenge of the Tipping Point.
Yep.
And he talks about the inflection point when things change, and it's when it's about a third. And actually in this book, he writes about one of the largest Medicare fraud cases in the country, the Esformis case. I remember that case. But I believe that because there are 100 million people over the age of 50, almost a third of the population, that we potentially could be at that inflection point. And it's interesting because I just did a presentation last week for the G100, this global women's organization. And I said, really, very often it's women and women raising their voices for whatever. So when you mention Mothers Against Drunk Driving, I mean, very often it's women that do this.
Can I tell you something that a good friend of ours said, named Al Power? And he says it in my documentary, and we put it there. He said, it took angry mothers to initiate the Disability Act, right?
Correct.
It's going to take angry daughters to change the long-term care system. And I said, sign me up.
Right.
Sign me up. And it's going to take it. And the thing, I want to say that two things. I want to just circle back for a second about the staffing. Understaffing, we had a staffing mandate here in California. We've had it for a while. It is not adhered to because there is no oversight. There is no enforcement. And if there's penalty, it becomes just the cost of doing business. It's very minimal and it's performative. So, and the other thing is that if you don't think you're going to be here where my mommy was, you will be there.
Correct.
And we will all be there. And especially, not to get political, but under this administration that we are in now, with the threat of the loss of Medicaid and our Social Security, there will be so many people that are going to suffer even more.
I mean, I've been having this conversation for quite some time. I've said to people, as a matter of fact, I was on a virtual town hall with Jim Himes, who's my representative in Connecticut. And I raised that question, what is going to happen with the people in these over 15,000 nursing homes in this country if they cut Social Security and Medicaid because these unscrupulous owners are raping the system for their own coffers and their own pockets as it is? What's going to happen when they cut back on those funds? What's going to happen to these people? It's going to be even worse.
It's going to be worse. For one thing, you're going to have granny dumping, which is a terrible word in name, but this is what will go on. And we will have vulnerable, and it won't just be granny. It will be, our disabled citizens who, or people with early onset cognitive issues. And it isn't just Alzheimer's. It's football players. It's right. We've got early onset. We've got Parkinson's. People live with that for a very long time. Right. And so we're talking about people that will not be able to survive. But then the other side of it is that I think these people are biting, our administration is biting the hand that feeds them too, because they're making so much money off of Medicaid. What are they doing? It's like, how stupid is everything? Everything is so it's so funny you say that, because I have something to say about that. But somebody just wrote, "We care for our elderly one step behind how we care for our children." Exactly.
But interestingly enough,
ageism, Janet. That's ageism, and that's why. And I say that all the time. We give grace to our children, and I'm a mommy, so I love my children, and I loved I love elderly. I love the people that have guided me through this life. And we give the children grace when they don't speak. We figure out a way to understand whether they're happy, sad, in pain, or tired. They laugh. They hug, they do all those things. And as we lose our speech, it doesn't mean we lose. That speech is just one part of a human being.
I agree. So as a speech and language pathologist, we're singing the same song, because what I tell people is not that I'm equating an older person who's in cognitive decline with a child. I'm not, but metaphorically, well, not even metaphorically speaking, if you think about it, when there is a child who can't talk yet or express themselves adequately, and they cry or they're cranky, what do you say? Oh, maybe they're tired, or they hungry, or are they wet? Are they need tenderness? And kids.
It's Benjamin Button. I call it Benjamin Button. If you look at it, right?
They respond to our touch and our face and our tone of voice and our smile. But when it's an older person who can't express themselves, why are we not exploring those same possibilities, needs in any of those areas, and addressing those needs, because they're a person that has a need, but they can't express themselves
because they're not valued, and they are expressing themselves. When someone becomes agitated and is acting out as with a cognitive disability, they are only exhibiting frustration because they're trying to communicate something to you. I don't like that. I'm hungry. I'm in pain. I'm this. But instead, we don't listen to them. We say they're difficult.
So what I say is, it's finger pointing. And when you point a finger at someone else, you have three fingers pointing back at you. So what is the environment that is causing them to respond that way? Is it something you said? Is there some way you approach them? Is there a loud noise? Are they frightened? Are they, startled? They don't know where they are. There's so many factors that need to go into that, rather than just saying, oh, they're acting out. As Al Power always says, and other people, not only him, there's no such thing as a dementia behavior, really.
Right.
There really is no such
It's a human behavior. I want to just, in case there's anybody listening that is part of the workforce, the workforce is also very much a victim to the system, because most people that go into nursing, a CNA, doctors, the medical field, are doing it for the right reason for the most part. And when they are not given the tools or the time that they need to perform their job properly, they experience moral injury. They can't do their job the way they want to. Many people have fled the field. So you have people that are doing work that isn't even their focus. They're taking it as a side gig. And so they don't really care. They don't understand, and nobody's training them because it's cheaper that way. Turnover is good, but turnover is not good in long-term care. Turnover is the worst because people need consistency.
Right.
So everything is bass awkward, as my dad would say.
Right.
And it's just not. It's not. It's everything that they're saying is just it's hyperbole, and it's gaslighting, and it's wrong. And if you feel it's wrong, it is wrong. Trust me on that.
So interestingly enough, what I say is, everything is systemic and everything starts from the top. The reality is that the workers are not respected. The workers are not valued. When it was during COVID, I was working in a facility, and I said to a COO, he was a regional that I knew. We were very good friends for a period of time. And I said, let me do like a workshop on resilience, on, give people strategies, because, it's just so stressful. You're wearing this PPE and this situation is stressful. And he said to me, I'll never forget it. He said, well, I wouldn't want to, so I wear a mask. I'm not watching participating in some workshop because I wear a mask for, part of the day. I'm not, I don't, for 15 to 30 minutes. I was like, what are you talking about? These people, they're in pain. They're stressed, they're overwhelmed and stressed. So the issue is that they are not valued. And so therefore, it's almost like a trickle down effect. Yes, many people go into this and their hearts are in the right place. And I've seen some wonderful people, but then they are stretched, they are overwhelmed, they are stressed, they don't even have the materials. I mean, I've been in places where, the shift changes, and so they have linens and they have to change people or get them ready for bed, and they have 20 people and they have 4 sheets and 6 pillowcases. Right. And so they're out of their minds, frustrated, trying to make things work for people, to care for them in the proper way. And they're not given the tools to do it.
They can't. And that's why, people lose their dignity. That's why people are told to, defecate and urinate in their own bed, because they get to them, where you have people that are saying, I really need to go to the restroom, and they can't take them to the restroom because they have 4 other people that they are ahead. And so, and I interviewed many doctors, and, talking about the high rate of suicide now in our community of doctors and nurses, and also that the area, the focus of gerontology is going away. No one wants to go into it. So we're having less and less geriatricians.
So what's happening is, rather than having a specialty in gerontology, or as a geriatrician, so nurse practitioners, because so many doctors have nurse practitioners who work under them, that's a business in and of itself. So the nurse practitioner kind of they're providing that kind of specialty education for the nurse practitioner. So then the doctor, they don't really need to have that specialty for the doctor. But, we could talk about this forever.
We really can, you guys. It's so important. You have to watch my, No Country for Old People. It's not out yet. It will be very shortly, but watch for it. Because
before we do that, well, somebody just said something, and then, because I understand your mother was a jazz singer, I asked you to send me an audio, and I want to play it so that people could get a sense of really who she was. And then I have questions for you about that in this building, in the facility. But Pete says, my sister and I visit my mom in the nursing home, so we are there to advocate for her twice a week. If we weren't there, I shudder to think how she would be treated. And let me tell you, Pete, that could is so important. People have this mistaken idea that they're moving their loved one. And I don't use the word put because you put, a book on a shelf, but these are people. I can't stand the use of that word. So they transition or move to a nursing home and they think it's a medical environment. They'll be cared for. But the reality is the more present you are, the more verbal you are, the more interactive you are with the staff, because I hate to say the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but that is a reality. And so good for you, Pete, for being there. But think of all the other people who don't have someone. Somebody just said, Janet said, we care for our elderly one step behind how we care for. That's the same comment from before.
Yeah.
But I
want to say something about advocacy too. Like you should be there. I absolutely think you need to be there all the time. There is a fear of retaliation that happens because and I'm a really nice person. Like I don't go in yelling or anything, but as soon as they would see me because I asked questions and I was on it all the time, I became, Benedict Arnold there, and I could feel it and it doesn't feel good. And so there's that too that happens because we are being the squeaky wheel and they can't do anything about it. That's the problem. So yeah,
that's absolutely true. So this Cleveland said, my dad in a long-term care facility, and their idea of intellectual activity is bingo. That's unfortunate, right? Because there's so many other things they could do. But it's interesting that you say that because I do coach families and I do coach them on and residents sometimes when they tell me things and I tell them to speak up and they're concerned about retaliation. And I tell them what to say so that will not happen. And I've been successful. People will come back to me and say, thank you so much, because the words that I tell them to use and how to couch it is not that it's whether you're a nice person and not a nice person or how it comes across adversarially, but specific wording that is, a signal to them that, oh, gee, we better take care of this person. But like I said, we could talk forever, but I want them to see the graphic that you gave us and hear the audio of your mother singing, because it's really something extraordinary.
Thank you.
It's very clear our love is here to stay, not for a year, but ever and a day. The radio and the telephone and the movies that we know may just be passing fancies, and in time may go. Ooh, my dear, our love is here to stay. Together we're going a long, long way. In time the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, they're only made of clay, but our love is here to stay. It's so very clear, our love is here to stay, not for a year, but ever and a day. The radio and the telephone and the movies that we know may just be passing fancies, and in time may go. Oh, oh, my dear, our love is here to stay. Together we're going a long, long way. In time the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, they're only made of clay, but our love is here to stay. my dear. Our love is here to stay. Together we're going a long, long way. In time the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, they're only made of clay, but our love is here too. Our love is here too. Our love is here to stay.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it took my breath away. I mean, what a phenomenal voice. It's just inspirational to listen to her. What did somebody say? This is from a person. I've been in a long-term care facility in Cleveland, and after 2 years here, I only hope that it's short-term care. Yeah, that's
care less facility.
Well, actually, that's the part of, care less facility. That's actually the title of my part of the title of my book, The American Long-Term Care Less Industry. But I wanted to ask you. So the place where she was, were they aware of her jazz singing background?
It's so funny that you asked that, Phyllis, because we talk about the lack of dignity and humanity, right? And I was grasping at straws. Like I kept saying, like, what, my mom is not having a good life. Like I would get a call from the social worker. Oh, your mom's doing great. We checked in on her and she's great. And I'd go in and she was facing a wall, right, and with no lights on and no music. Because I distinctly said, when I'm not there, please have the music. Music is her life. And so, it just dawned on me. Every time I went, I played her music from Capitol Records, and she has 12 tracks, and I'd play them and sing along with them with her. And people would stop and go, who's singing? And I go, that woman right there in bed. What? And do you know that was when she started to get a little different, response from people, because it humanized her. And they were like, wow, she's incredible. And I'm like, I know.
So, there's, and you probably do know, and I think I mentioned this to you when we spoke years ago. Dan Cohen created a program called Music in Memory.
Yeah, actually also did Alive Inside. He did that documentary, Alive Inside.
Right, Alive Inside. I actually have a course I did with Dan Cohen, great guy. And he's kind of broken away from Music in Memory and formed a company called Right to Music. And he works with government officials because it's the people's right to have. So his program is based on personalized playlists.
Yeah.
And developing personalized playlists, the music that people love and enjoy. And if anybody wants to go watch the film Alive Inside, it's touching, but people literally come alive listening to the music that they loved, right? I mean, I've seen it countless times in buildings. And I often say that, I wonder if my kids, my daughter might know some songs that I like, but I have a very eclectic taste. It goes across many genres. And I wonder if she knows, and maybe I should start to write down some of those things or communicate them with her, because there is a very big difference when this person said, their idea of bingo, right, is for an activity. So their idea of music is someone comes in once a week or twice a week and sings some songs and whatever, but that may not be the songs that mean anything to any particular person. And that's where Music in Memory and personalized playlists are very, very different.
Magic. They're the magic. They were my tools. They were my most powerful tools in my arsenal. Was my mom's music, not just hers, but the things that she loved. The opera, the Bocelli, and Neil Diamond, because that's from her era. I played Neil Diamond Hot August Night at nauseum. And my mom would go, she loved it, right?
Right.
And, by this point, I know every word to that album, guys. But it is magic because music is magic. And can I just tell one anecdote?
Yeah,
and
please.
when my mom was at assisted living, and it was a memory care assisted living, there was a woman there. We got friends with everybody, and she had a private caregiver, and she never talked. But I was told she was a dancer, and I was like, "Oh, you're a dancer," and she'd go, she would just be nonverbal. So one day, we are always singing. My whole family sings. We've been in the music industry, and we were singing around the table, and we were singing Yesterday, doing great harmonies, if I say so myself. She started singing along, Ruth.
Right.
And her caregiver said, "Ruth, you're singing." And she goes, "Yeah."
Right.
And we were like,
right.
Say no more. Is that not magic?
It is. And that's Alive. So when the title of that film, Alive Inside, is so perfect because people really do come alive. I mean, and I love to dance.
Me too.
Done ballroom dancing and done some performances, whatever. But so because I love to dance, when music is playing, even if they have music on during a mealtime or whatever, I'm always, dancing and bopping around, and people literally come alive. They start clapping and snapping their fingers. And I've seen it, even recently, they start singing or smiling. I mean, it means so much, but it's not just this person coming once a month and playing the guitar and singing some songs. It has to be something that's meaningful for people, that's relatable.
Right. But even that, when people come in, if you can get them engaged, because I used to go in there and I didn't really like any of the songs maybe that one person was coming and singing, but God damn it, I sang along. And I was singing along, and I got up and danced. I danced with men in their wheelchairs, okay?
Right.
They loved it.
Love it.
And
Absolutely.
they loved it. And I'm not infantilizing them, and I'm not saying I'm doing it like I loved it. Like I loved it. It meant a lot to me.
Absolutely.
All I can say is, like, as a a Gen X on the cusp, girl who, always afraid of getting older and dying and all that stuff. My mom and I had a deal. We don't die. That's the way it goes. But, anyway, but, the thing is that I learned so much by being a caregiver, by being around this community, and by respecting it and loving it so much that it broke my heart. It broke my heart to see the realities of it. It broke my heart what happened at COVID, when so many healthy elders who were in their 90s, who were I call them the cool group at the nursing home, who all got together and all knew us. And when, Susie and her daughters are singing, they'd come around and they're like, "Susie, you're going to give me a role in your next movie." I'm like, "You better believe it, Stuart." They all died from isolation and loneliness. Yes. And that was heartbreaking.
Absolutely, because it is a killer. Actually, they say that loneliness is as damaging to our well-being, and I think it's smoking either 5 or 7 cigarettes a day. It's deadly. It's actually deadly.
Isn't it obvious though? I mean, look, what happens to children who are locked up, and what happens to animals that are locked up?
Right, correct. So, Susie, we're coming to the end, and this has been fantastic. We have to have you back again, but is there anything you want to leave the audience with?
I just want to say, go to our website, No Country for Old People, if you're interested in being a part of this roar active, and get active and be a roarier with us. Please do. I know it's not the 60s anymore. And like, I've only marched in the Women's March. That was my first march. And it felt great because I felt heard and I felt accepted and I felt powerful. And I think that's what we need to do. I encourage you to join us, put your name on the list. If you have experience in advocacy, please let us know. We need your help. And, that's all I want to say. And look for No Country for Old People and share it with people. It's important.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Susie. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, thanks so much for sharing your time and your enthusiasm, your advocacy. I mean, like I said, we met a few years ago, and it's just I'm glad that we reconnected, and hopefully we'll continue to go from here.
Definitely. Take care. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Susie. So thanks so much for joining me today on Senior Nation. We're so grateful to Susie for sharing memories of her mom and chronicled her nursing home journey in the documentary that will hopefully raise awareness about improving the care, dignity, and respect that our family and loved ones receive in their later years, and for continuing to be an advocate in this arena. So please join me next Wednesday, April 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Senior Nation to hear my conversation with my next guest, Dr. Brigitte Tan, who has helped over 25,000 people move through their heartbreaking experiences to rediscover peace, purpose, and joy. Dr. Tan is a certified grief specialist, trauma response grief life mastery coach, and is the only child caregiver for her aging parents. You really won't want to miss her share her personal insights and experiences. So remember to tune in next Wednesday, April 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern on Source TV Radio Network. And until then, take care, stay well, and stay tuned.
Go for it. I'm just saying I'm not finished yet. Search for it, swing for it. Discover the me that lives in yes. Stand for it, stretch for it. It's my time, imagine my best. Run for it, reach for it. Uncover the me that lives in yes. I know, yes I know. There'll be miracles wherever I go. It's not work, it's play. I can make magic today.